This is your pool party captain, Randy Fitzsimmons, and you're listening to the Game Changer Podcast. Pew pew!
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Nate the Great!
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your paladin of positivity, the one, the only, Nate the NateFNGreat, and welcome to the Game Changer Podcast, where I change the game one day at a time. Let's talk about horror movies for a minute, shall we? Honestly, guys, I was never really a big fan of the whole horror movie deal. The spooky monsters, the demons, and all these creepy deals. But as time goes on, I've really appreciated the amount of effort as well as story arcs that a lot of these movies have really created. I fell in love with the Friday the 13th movies. My all-time favorites were indeed the Nightmare on Elm Street. As I mentioned before, I'm a pretty huge fan of Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. I've honestly really enjoyed the Halloween series as well. And there's still so many other series that I've not really gotten a chance to enjoy. But I've also kind of looked at some of the mediocre as well as bad horror movies. I mean, do I need to really go any further than Slender Man, Truth or Dare, as well as the reboot of Child's Play? Just to name a few. I don't want to bury too many of them, but I will if I have to. As time goes on, you definitely do see the horror element just kind of evolving a bit more, and the story arcs as well as the stories themselves, they are being built up very well. Now, that is to say, like I said before, there are still some bumps in the road, but over the years, some of these stories have actually taken a bit of an interesting turn, as well as created a life of their own. Two of those movies actually involve a sequel to one of the most gory horror movies franchises of all time, and the other one is a pretty unexpected, fairly well done horror movie series, which I'm going to be covering. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of a quick review on two movies. One of them is Spiral, the next chapter inspired by Saw, as well as A Quiet Place Part 2. So let's start with Spiral. Saw series was, in all honesty, a pretty damn good series at the start, where you had John Kramer, played by Tobin Bell, absolutely amazing. He literally is one of those guys that I've actually admired as an on-screen character, and the way that he portrays John Kramer is just absolutely fantastic. And honestly, John Kramer's motivation is about appreciating life. It's a bit of a sick, twisted way of doing it, but it's also one of those things where, unlike a lot of horror movie villains where they're just going to kill them in the end, he gives them a choice. He gives them a chance to get a second, feeling on life. And a lot of people know that because of the traps that he had created. I mean, you saw the reverse bear trap, the first movie where he handcuffed two guys to pipes and stuff, and one of them basically, chopped his own foot off just to get out of it. You see a lot of these crazy traps that were created for him, and as he worked with, other people and try to groom proteges to just try and pick up where he leaves off, because he's not going to be there forever. It's literally one of those things where you definitely do see where the dark twistedness comes in, as well as the well-played horrific deals come in. Now, I will say this, that with the two proteges that he had, they took things a bit of a different turn because of their mental instability or unstableness, we will say. They did not understand what John Kramer's vision was. More, they thought that this was just another way to punish the people who had done wrong to people like John Kramer or to others, which you understand, but John Kramer, like I said, gives them a choice to either, live a new life or experience death. Whereas the other two, they just went straight into the death with very little to no way of getting out of the deal. Just absolutely crazy. And then we had a bit of a reboot / prequel in the Jigsaw movie, in which he found a different protege. And this guy has a bit of a John Kramer-esque feel to him. Ultimately, just not the same, but he still kind of felt like he was trying at least. So, obviously, John Kramer has touched so many people, and that's kind of where Spiral kind of works in its own way, because of the fact that people actually have seen what John Kramer is capable of and what his way of dealing with things is. There were people that were actually kind of motivated by John Kramer to create this new film. And Spiral is basically that. Instead of having, the little, puppet, having John Kramer involved, it's basically somebody else who is doing these things more to punish than anything. And, well, he also ends up killing every single person that he ends up, capturing, which is basically the same way as the, previous two predecessors that John Kramer had. But there's a bit more of a difference between the two of them and the killer from this. I'm not going to go into character names, because I think in all honesty, people have already know who these people are, as well as just there's really not much you can really say about these characters, except for the fact it does feature Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, two big Hollywood names. To be quite honest, they play their roles pretty well. You have Chris Rock, who's playing the role of a character who is just not a big fan of the whole partner thing. He's just not very, very cooperative when it comes to the rest of the police force, who is the targets of this movie, which I thought was a bit of a surprise, but also kind of a twisted deal, considering the fact that we are still dealing with people who think that the police need to not be involved with everything, which I heavily disagree with, but I'm not going to get too political with that. It was just one of those really scary coincidental tie-ins when it came down to it. Ultimately, though, it's Chris Rock trying to figure out who this killer is, and he's not really known as a jigsaw killer, more, I would say, a spiral killer, just because of the fact that he uses a spiral as his trademark more than anything. Now, some of these traps are honestly pretty good, if I can be quite frank. I thought that the whole trap where he had the latching of the tongue, where it's like, you have to lose your tongue before you'll die from a train, or the, you'll get electrocuted, but if you take away your fingers, you'll be fine. It's just one of those things where I look at a lot of these traps, and they're still very much ingenious. Now, does that help, the story a little bit? Well, I think that this is one of those stories that, considering that it is a spin-off to a Saw movie, I thought it was pretty good. The characters are pretty well developed. A lot of the horror movies that you definitely do see have characters that you just absolutely hate or despise, or you just want to see kill off. There's some of these characters that you really want to see, survive, and it should come as no surprise that two of them are more or less Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, because even though they're playing the father-son duo, you kind of understand some of the hardships that the character of Samuel Jackson brings to the Chris Rock character, but you also know that Chris Rock, despite these hardships, he still loves his dad. And it is one of those things where you just kind of love the relationship that they kind of build off of during this deal. You understand why, Samuel L. Jackson's character does what he does. And you also understand some of the situations why Chris Rock's character does the things that he does. Ultimately, though, I thought that this movie was pretty good. Like I said, for a spin-off of a Saw movie, yeah, I thought it was one of the better movies in the quote-unquote series, even though this is more of a spin-off than a sequel to the Saw series, that it will be something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on and probably watching the next installment for any of these movies, because I'm kind of curious where it's going to go. Ultimately, what I would kind of like to see is maybe they're going to have these spin-offs coming in. I know that they're actually going to have some kind of Saw TV series that's in the works right now that would follow the killer of this movie. And I think that might be kind of interesting to kind of build up a little bit more of the, character flaws that maybe he had, but it also kind of builds up his character more for when you get him back on the big screen. And to be honest, I'm kind of thinking that there's going to be more of these Jigsaw wannabe or knockoff killers where they're going to eventually probably team up, and maybe there will be a point where they're going to fight against each other, or maybe they'll team up to take out a quote-unquote bigger evil in the world. There's a lot of possibilities when it comes to this, and I'm saying a lot for a Saw movie. That's crazy, to be honest. It's really, again, amazing how the mind works and how a lot of people that I give lack of credit to in Hollywood who have run out of ideas, where there are directors like this who create a better movie, and they also keep you interested because you want to see what happens next. Which, speaking of that, brings me into A Quiet Place Part 2. I was such a fan of the first one. I mean, the guy who plays Jim Halpert on The Office created this first movie, and I thought, well, this will be kind of interesting. Let's see how this kind of works out. And then I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is literally one of the best movies that I've seen ever. Definitely within my top 5, if not top 10. It's so well done, and the fact of the matter is there's very little to no dialogue in this. It's all mainly sign language between the characters because they have to remain quiet, otherwise they'll end up dead. And you do see the same motions going into Part 2, but there's a definite deeper deal going on here. I mean, some of the things that they've done during this movie include they actually opened the movie with what happened on day 1 when this invasion took place, and how, so many of these people came to be, how they kind of knew each other, everything along those lines. You also had basically the continuation of Part 1, where we get to see new characters. We see, honestly, something I was not expecting was to be a quote-unquote safe haven, which unfortunately that did not last very long. And honestly, it's not even the character's fault. It was just an unfortunate set of circumstances that caused this to happen. Again, I'm trying not to be too spoiler-ridden when it comes to this, because I think it is just absolutely one of those things where it makes more sense to kind of just talk about it than spoil everything about it. But one of the things in the first movie is the fact that they found a way to help weaken the monsters. And basically there's a way that they are trying to ensure that they continue to weaken that monster. And I will say this, the girl who plays the daughter, she has a fantastic job in this movie. She just absolutely killed it. She has a bit more speaking in this one because, honestly, I honestly didn't think that she was going to be able to speak at all, but she's, whispering. She's definitely being a lot more active. She wants to do more to save her family. She basically feels like the role of protector is now on her with her father being gone. And it's something that you really see that there's so much pressure being put on these kids. They're not going to have that chance to be children because they're basically fending for their life. They're basically trying to ensure that they don't end up as a victim of these creepy aliens. It's just, it's so well done. I will say this, John Krasinski, I believe his name is, Emily Blunt, they do it again, where they created an absolutely amazing movie. One of the things I will say that I give them major props on is a lot of people who direct their own movies would probably put themselves in the higher roles, and they would definitely give themselves more screen time. With both of these movies, you definitely feel like there's a well balance between every single one of the characters, and you also see a lot more development being done in this second movie. It's so absolutely amazing to see that. I definitely cannot recommend A Quiet Place any more than I already have. Definitely get a chance to watch it. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm looking forward to when we get to part 3. I think there just literally has to be, the way that it ends. It's like, okay, well, now we have to see where it continues from here. Are there going to be more characters introduced? Are they finally going to rid the world of all of these aliens? Is there even going to be a tougher alien that is going to withstand the, the feedback that they found out about? Who knows at this point? Who absolutely knows? But I'm going to take a little quick commercial break and then come back. We're going to do some cheap plugs, but also pay homage to an actor, director, and wonderful person whom I have a lot of respect for and a lot of admiration for. So stay tuned, guys. Be right back.
This is the Princess of Pro Wrestling, SoCal Val, inviting you to watch Grown Ass Women TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. GAW TV is the ultimate slumber party with me, Lisa Marie Varon, and Mickey James. Plus, special guests like Mick Foley, WWE's Paige, and more. We're live in the YouTube chat room every Wednesday for each episode premiere. So join us, and don't forget to bring a cocktail. Visit GawTV.com for more info. That's GAWTV.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to the Game Changer Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, NateFNGreat, and this past weekend was a bit of a tough one because there was an unfortunate passing that nobody really saw coming, and unfortunately it was due to an accident. I've yet to hear any word on this more, but unfortunately, one person who has definitely hit a lot of people in a positive way. Some people might remember him from the show The Whitest Kids You Know. I know I definitely did. That was Trevor Moore. Unfortunately, passed away this past weekend. He was involved in some kind of accident. I've looked up every single bit about if there's any kind of information about what happened with his accident, but unfortunately there's not been any new details that have been made from this. It's just, it was a shocking and also kind of heartbreaking deal to see Trevor Moore pass away, because in my opinion, Trevor Moore was honestly one of the main focal points when it came to The Whitest Kids You Know. I looked back at so many of these sketches that they've done. You know the cast of Trevor, Sam, Zach, Darren, and Timmy. And you know that every single one of those characters have had, every single one of those people, I apologize, have had characters that have been in lead roles, supporting characters, such like that. It's basically sketch comedy that they've created. And so many of these roles and, deals have Trevor Moore as one of the main leads. Now, I'm not taking anything away from everybody else in the cast, but I definitely saw Trevor Moore in a lot more of these sketch comedy deals than any other ones. And honestly, one of the crazier things is that Trevor Moore was the only one that I saw that did a lot of the musical numbers for the Whitest Kids. You look at a lot of these music videos that they have on there, the dinosaur rap. There was Wake Up Your Neighbor. One of my favorites, Old Folks Home. It's just comedy gold. But Trevor is the one that's doing a lot of the, singing for it. He's doing he's the center of attention when it comes to that. And maybe it's just one of those things where Trevor Moore wanted to take chances and he wanted to try these new things. In all honesty, I would be very shocked if some of these characters that were created were based on the idea that Trevor was going to be the lead for that. Or it would be a situation where some of the other cast members are like, I just don't think I can do it as well as he could. And this is all speculation. I'm not trying to say this is exactly what happened, but it definitely felt like everybody put in their 100%, and Trevor was one of those guys that definitely seemed like he was up to doing anything and everything. Some of the favorite sketches that I've looked at have been The Grapist. A lot of people know that one. Just the way his reaction to this deal where, he pitches the mascot, it just looks like a creepy commercial, and one of the guys that's like a producer or like an agent, they're just like, well, I don't feel really comfortable with this because it sounds like he's going to rape these kids. And Trevor's character is like, what? Oh, God. No. Get your mind out of the gutter, sir. Just play it off like, this was not my intention at all, you sick, twisted pervert. You look at some of the other, I'm trying to remember some of the other great ones that they had. There's an Abe Lincoln sketch where basically it's back in the olden times. Abe Lincoln's in like a box office, and Trevor Moore's character is John Wilkes Booth, basically saying, shut up, Mr. President, you're disrupting the show. And Abe Lincoln is just literally doing these deals where he's like, you done fucked up now, son. You done fucked up now, son. You done fucked up now, son. Just being super annoying. But it's so absolutely hilarious seeing that. Oh my gosh. I love the Whirlpool sketch that they did. They actually were so popular that they actually took some of their shows on the road, some of their, sketches on the road, and they did Whitest Kids Live, which I thought was genius. I thought it was great. They introduced new sketches, they introduced new concepts. You just see so many of these really great, comedic deals. And the thing about it is that was some of their comedy a bit controversial? Not gonna lie, yes. I mean, one of their first episodes does literally have Adolf Hitler in a music video, and it's really hard to make Adolf a likable character. They even had a not a train video, like a educational video. There we go, as to where Adolf Hitler kind of became the person he was. And it starts off like he's a young kid with full of spirit, and he's doing all these good deeds, and then he just takes like a cigarette or a marijuana, like pot or something like that, and that's when he just turns evil. And it basically ends with, that's why drugs are evil. And I remember Trevor Moore had a line of like, I can't tell whether I hate or love this class. It's just absolutely hilarious. He also went on to produce a couple of movies, Civil War on Drugs, and one movie that I'm definitely going to be watching, and I might even review, Miss March, which I looked at the initial reviews. This movie got blasted. Oh my gosh. This was one of those movies that a lot of people seem to not really be big on, but I'm going to watch it with an open mind, and I will say this. There's a lot of movies that have definitely made me question my faith in humanity. I don't think this is going to be one of them. If you really want to know some of the movies, definitely hit me up on my social media. But Trevor Moore had such an amazing mind, and he played so many great characters that just really, honestly, you look at the amount of comedy that they made and how much that they created, definitely check out their YouTube page. It's absolutely wonderful. And you just see the amount of impact that they had. Do they have like millions upon millions of viewers? No, but they have a sturdy enough following to where you understand why people really seem to enjoy it. It has some of that, controversial dark humor. It also has some kind of light humor when it goes down with it. It's just one of those things where they're basically a modernized version of what Monty Python was back in the day. And funny enough, there was a sketch where they involved John Cleese from Monty Python. They wrote a letter to him, and they used that letter of his response as a sketch. And in all honesty, it's so funny. It really is. Definitely get a chance to watch that. So, with everything said about Trevor Moore and everything, I just would like to say that on behalf of everybody here at the Game Changer Podcast, we want to wish nothing but our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the family and the friends of Trevor Moore, as they are undoubtedly still going through this moment of loss. Because in all honesty, Trevor Moore was more than just this skinny guy who just really was great at sketch comedy. He was one of those guys who definitely, from what I've heard from the press release that was laid out, he was a wonderful friend, amazing husband, and a tremendous father. And that is something that really hurts the most. This is a guy who was taken away at age 41. He just passed his prime, and he was just, I think, starting to get into a place where everything was just starting to go into place. It's just one of the worst things that could really happen. So, again, thoughts and prayers, condolences to the friends and the family of Trevor Moore. And we will definitely be honoring his legacy by reminding people of the amazing person that he was in life. So, for the Game Changer Podcast, I've been NateFNGreat. You can follow me on so many social media platforms. Check out the podcast on so many different formats. And definitely remember, guys, to be safe out there, be smart, be respectful, and know that you can make a difference in somebody's life, because everybody is a game changer. Trevor Moore, you were definitely a game changer in life and beyond. Thank you, guys. Take care.